Relational data model and language. What is relational data model? What are the model concept, integrity constraint, key domain, referential integrity, assertion, and what are triggers? In this video, we are going to discuss about all the above mentioned keywords. Hello everyone, I am Sukanya from GoEduHub Technologies, and to begin with, we have relational data model language. Relational model represent how data is stored in relational databases. We all know in our previous videos, we have also seen that in relational databases, table data is called as relation. Relational data model is a primary data model which is used widely around the world for data storage and processing. This model is simple and it has all the properties and capabilities required to process data with storage efficiency. The concept of relational data modeling is attribute, that is, each column in a table is known as an attribute. For example, student roll number, name in student table. Tables in the relational model, relation are saved in table format. It is stored along with its entities. A table has two properties, that is rows and column. Rows represent the record and column represent the attributes. Tuple is nothing but a row of table. A single row of table is known itself a tuple. It contains a single record. Relation schema. The relation schema represents the name of the relation with its attribute. Degree, the total number of attributes in which relation is called degree of that particular relation. Cardinality, the number of rows present in any particular table is known as its cardinality. Column represent the set of values for any specific attribute, for example, student roll number or name. Relation instance is a finite set of tuple in RDBMS, and relation instance never have any duplicate value. There is a term known as relation key. Relation key, every row has one, two or multiple attributes, which is called a relation key. Attribute domain, every attribute has some predefined value and scope in which it is known as its attribute domain. Now there are several integrity constant. So firstly we should know that what is an integrity constant. Integrity constants are set of rules which are specified on any particular table. It is used to maintain the quality of information. Integrity ensures that data insertion, updation and other process have to be in a particular performed way such that the way of the data integrity is not affected. The constants are of four types: domain level constant, entity integrity constant, key constant and then referential integrity constant. The domain constant can be violated if an attribute value is not appearing in the corresponding domain or if it is not the appropriate data type. For example, you can create a domain constant named check and the value is not null. Key constant is an attribute that can uniquely identify a tuple such as primary key, foreign key, candidate key, which we have learnt in previous video. Those are known as key constant. For example, in the table customer ID, this table, a key attribute of customer table, it most likely to have a single key for one customer. Customer ID is equals to 1 and the customer name is Google. So this is how key works. Referential integrity constant are the concept of foreign keys. A foreign key is important attribute of relation which is referred to both the tables. A primary key of a particular table can be the foreign key of other existing table. A table can have n number of foreign key, but it can only have one primary key. The entity integrity constants are state that the primary key value cannot be null. Primary key itself denotes not null and unique value. This is because primary key has the identify individual rows in any relation, so value cannot be not null. For example, you are creating a table employee, then you cannot have employee ID as null. Employee, if there exists an employee name, phone and address, then it has to be associated with an employee ID. So this is the basic concept of entity integrity constant. Next we have is triggers. What are triggers and what is an SQL trigger? A SQL trigger is a database object like a stored procedure, we can say, and it is a special kind of stored procedure which fires when an event occurs in a database. In simple words, when you do something in a database, even when you create a particular database or create a table or delete a table or rename a table, those all events are fired under SQL triggers. There are two types of trigger, DDL trigger and DML trigger, that is data definition language triggers and data manipulation language trigger. Now you might have a question that what is the difference between a trigger and a procedure? Procedure is also sometime when we execute a command, that is a procedure. So how it is different from a trigger? So triggers are automatically executed on the occurrence of any event, whereas they can be executed whenever required. Procedure can be executed whenever required, whereas triggers are automatically by default executed on occurrence of any specific event. Triggers can't call inside a procedure, but you can call a procedure inside a trigger. We cannot pass any parameter to a trigger, but we can pass parameters to procedure. Trigger never return value on execution. There is no return value for execution, but procedure may return value or value set of values on execution. For creation of trigger, you have to create a function, the trigger function, which return the trigger as what is the return, and it has no value, so there is no return type given. This is how an SQL trigger is created. For example, if you have created a function table and employees, and then if I create this particular table in my SQL command line, so let me see the trigger is fired or not. So here you can see that I have created a table and the query is okay. There is no return type. There is nothing in return. It just says that this query is okay and the table is employee name has been created with the ID, serial primary key. That means it is auto incremented. First name varchar not null. Not null is a constant. That means you cannot left the first name and the last name as null. You have to insert some value so that record can be stored in table employees. Next, if you want to insert into employee values in the first name and last name only, serial is mentioned to the primary key. That means it will auto increment the value. So when I execute this command in my SQL command line, I will see that here I can see that I have insert into employees first name and last name values John Doe, and the query is okay. That means the trigger is fired and insertion has been done. Similarly, if I want to insert the second value, that is first name and last name Lily Bush, and when I execute this query in my SQL command line, what I will see is that it will also get inserted. So value is inserted, Lily Bush, and again one row affected. Both the values have been inserted. So this is the output. Similarly, I can update query. Update is also kind of trigger, a initiation been made. So if I want to see that whether my trigger has been occurred and the insertion process is done, for that we use the select query. We know that select query we use under the DML section of commands. So here you can see that select asterisk from employees, the first name John, last name Doe, Lily Bush. So both the records have been inserted. Now if you want to update the table, so the syntax is update table name, that is employee, what value you want to set and at which place. So where the ID is 2, which has been auto incremented, you can change the last name over there. That means Lily's last name will be changed to Brown instead of Blush. So let us now execute this query. So the query is okay. One row is matched. How the matching is done? Matching is done on basis of this ID. ID is done on the basis, and chain is done on the basis of set command. You have set this to Brown. Now as you execute the select statement, you can see the change has been done. That means trigger has occurred and the update has been made in the table employees in place of Lily. So Lily now has surname Brown instead of Bush. This is the concept of triggers. What is the advantage of trigger? Trigger generates some derived column value automatically. It enforces the referential integrity. It helps in auditing, synchronization, replication of table, and it prevents the invalid transaction. So in this video, we have learned about triggers and we have also learned about several integrity constants. For more queries, we will look into other videos. Thank you.